Hello, Miss Little's reading class. I am going to go over the two stories that we read this week in reading class for those of you who might have missed a day or to better complete your e-learning assignments. So the first story is The Secret Garden. And as we know, this is a realistic fiction. This tells a story about characters and events that could exist in real life. For example, we know that Cinderella is not a realistic fiction. That is a fantasy or a fairy tale because there is no fairy godmother in real life. There are no talking animals in real life. And the book we are reading in class, Hatchet, that could definitely happen in real life. That's definitely a realistic fiction. Is the story itself true? No. But could it happen in real life? Yes, there could definitely be a plane crash. Someone might need to be able to figure out how to survive. That is a realistic fiction. The Secret Garden is realistic fiction as well. These are real people that have real people-like traits, but it is not a story that actually happened. So here is The Secret Garden. Now I'm going to read the foreword. Remember, the foreword sets us up for what happens in the story. It lets us know some background information so we can better understand what's going on. 10-year-old orphan Mary Lennox has recently moved from India to her uncle's mansion in England. Mary has made few friends at the mansion, including the gardener Ben Weatherstaff, and a friendly Robin who often keeps Ben company. She's also discovered a mysterious walled-off garden that's been abandoned for 10 years. Mary would love to get inside the secret garden, but hasn't been able to find an entrance. The day before, however, she found an old key half buried in the dirt. And now our story is going to start. So we got some background knowledge. So we know that Mary, this little girl here, she is 10 years old and she moved to England to her uncle's mansion from India. And this man right here is Ben Weatherstaff. He is the gardener. And then we have this bird here, which is a robin. So these are our three characters. The skipping rope was a wonderful thing. She counted and skipped and skipped and counted until her cheeks were quite red, and she was more interested than she has ever been since she was born. The sun was shining, a little wind was blowing, not a rough wind, but one which came in a delightful little gust and brought a fresh scent of newly turned earth with it. She skipped round the fountain garden and up one walk and down another. She skipped at last into the kitchen garden and saw Ben Weatherstaff digging and talking to his robin, which was hopping about him. She skipped down the walk toward him. He lifted his head and looked at her with a curious expression. She had wondered if he would notice her. She really wanted him to see her skip. Mary skipped around all the gardens and round the orchard. Now, an orchard is a fancy way to say a bunch of trees that grow fruits or flowers. So it looks like right now we have a rose orchard. There's also an apple orchard. Fall's coming up. If you were to go see a pumpkin patch, you wouldn't just say, I'm going to go to the pumpkins. You would say the pumpkin patch because the patch is where the pumpkins grow. So in this case, we have an orchard. And those are those tall trees that you see right here, and right here. At length she went to her own special walk. She made up her mind to try to skip the whole length of it. It was a good long skip, and she began slowly. Before she had gone halfway down the path, she was so hot and breathless that she was obliged to stop. She did not mind much, because she had already counted up to 30. She stopped with a little laugh of pleasure. There, lo and behold, was the robin swinging on a long branch of ivy. He had followed her, and he greeted her with a chirp. As Mary had skipped toward him, she felt something heavy in her pocket strike against her at each jump. When she saw the robin, she laughed again. You showed me where the key was yesterday, she said. You ought to show me the door today, but I don't believe you know. The robin flew from a swinging spray of ivy onto the top of the wall, and he opened his beak and sang a loud, lovely trill, merely to show off. Nothing in the world is quite as adorably lovely as a robin when he shows off, and they are always nearly doing it. Mary Lennox had heard a great deal about magic and stories, and she always said that what happened almost that moment was magic. One of those nice little gusts of wind rushed down the walk, and it was a stronger one than the rest. It was strong enough to wave the branches of the trees. It was more than strong enough to sway the trailing sprays of untrimmed ivy hanging from the wall. Mary had stepped down close to the robin, and suddenly the gust of wind swung aside some loose ivy trails. More suddenly still, she jumped toward it and caught it in her hand. This She did because she had seen something under it, a round knob which had been covered by the leaves hanging over it. It was the knob of a door. She put her hands under the leaves and began to pull and push them aside. Thick as the ivy hung, and nearly all was loose in the swinging curtain, though some had crept over wood and iron. Mary's heart began to thump, and her hands to shake a little in her delight and excitement. The robin kept singing and twittering away and tilting his head on one side, as if he were as excited as she was. What was this under her hands, which was square, made of iron, and with her fingers found a hole in? What do you think it is? They're describing right here at the doorknob. It was the lock of the door which had been closed for 10 years. She put her hand in her pocket, drew out the key, and found it fitted the keyhole. She put the key in and turned it. It took 2 hands to do it, but it did turn. She had to put a lot of effort to turn it because it's been locked, like it said, for 10 years. Then she took a long breath and looked behind her up the long walk to see if anyone was coming. No one was coming. No one ever did come, it seemed. She took another long breath because she could not help it. She held back the swinging curtain of ivy and pushed back the door, which opened slowly, slowly. What do you think is going to be in it? Then she slipped through it and shut it behind her and stood with her back against it, looking about her and breathing quite fast with excitement and wonder and delight. She was standing inside the secret garden. It was the sweetest, most mysterious looking place anyone could imagine. Mysterious. Mysterious means it's curious or you don't know what's going on, like a mystery book. You need to figure out the ending. The high walls which shut it in were covered with the leafless stems of climbing roses, which were so thick that they were matted together. Matted is when something is so stuck. So imagine your headphone cords. You know how your headphone cords can get easily tangled up? They're matted together. Mary Lennox knew that they were roses because she had seen great many roses in India. All the ground was covered with grass of wintry brown. Out of it grew clumps of bushes, which were surely rose bushes if they were alive. There were numbers of standard roses, which had spread their branches. They were like little trees. So look at this picture right here. So we know that it's springtime, but this garden doesn't look like it's in spring. Everything's dead and brown. And it even described it right here. Grass of wintry brown. There were other trees in the garden, and one of the things which made the place look strangest and loveliest was that climbing roses had run all over them and swung down like long tendrils. Can you think of Miss Little's curtains in her room? How it's the sparkles in the windows that hang down little strings? Those are tendrils, which made light swaying curtains. Here and there they had caught at each other or at far-reaching branch, and had crept from one tree to another, and made lovely bridges themselves. They were neither leaves nor roses on them now, and Mary did not know whether they were dead or alive. For their thin gray or brown branches its sprays looked like a sort of hazy mantle spreading over everything, walls and trees, and even brown grass, where they had fallen from their fastenings. Remember I had you point to the button on your shirt? That's a fastening, because it keeps it together, it keeps it closed. So everything that held the trees, branches, and the flowers together were not fastened anymore. They were falling, and they were on the ground. It was this hazy tangle from tree to tree which made it all look so mysterious. Mary had thought it must be different from other gardens which had not been left all by themselves so long. Indeed, it was different from any other place she had ever seen in her life. How still it is, she whispered. How still. Then she waited a moment and listened to the stillness. The robin who had flown to his treetop was still at all the rest. He did not even flutter his wings. He sat without stirring, and looking at Mary. No wonder it is still, she whispered again. I am the first person who has spoken here for 10 years. She moved away from the door, stepping as softly as if she were afraid of awakening somebody. So she's being really, really quiet right now because everything in the garden is super still. So that's what she means by she's afraid she might awaken something or someone. She was glad that there was grass under her feet and that her steps made no sounds. She walked under one of the very light gray arches between the trees and looked up at the sprays and tendrils which formed them. I wonder if they are all quite dead, she said. Is it all a quite dead garden? I wish it wasn't. If she had been Ben Weatherstaff, she could have told whether the wood was alive by looking at it, but she could only see that there were only gray or brown sprays and branches, and none showed any signs of even a tiny leaf bud anywhere. But she was inside the wonderful garden, and she could come through the door under the ivy any time, and she felt as if she had found a world all on her own. So The Secret Garden is actually a longer book. This is something called an excerpt. So this is a very small part of the book. So this kind of sets us up for the rest of the story without giving it all away. This is what you're going to use to answer these 2 pages. So this is our literary elements, The Secret Garden. Directions. As you read, complete the graphic organizer. Take notes about the important characters, the setting, where and when the story takes place, and the plot, the story events. So our characters, we only talked about 3. We had Mary Lennox, we had the Robin, and we had Ben Weatherstaff. And then our setting. So we know that it's not India. She moved from India. It is her uncle's mansion in England, and then she goes into the garden. And then you're going to talk to me about the plot. So the main problem is Mary cannot find the door to the secret garden. These are the important story events. So I want you to tell me another important story event, like how did she find the door? What happened when she went inside the door? So how was the problem solved or resolved? So tell me the problem, and then tell me how it's solved. Then I want you to create pictures in your mind as you read. So I want you to draw your visualization of what the secret garden would look like in full bloom. So right now we know the garden is dead, but I want you to show me what the garden would look like if it was not all dead. Describe the changes that would take place in the garden to make this happen. Our next story we read this week was a play, The Miracle of Spring. So plays are stories that can be performed in front of an audience. Remember, we all assigned parts and then we all got to pass around the speaker ball and we performed the play. We're going to go and run through it again, just to kind of refresh our memory and help us do the assignments. So authors of plays might organize the story into scenes. Each scene focuses on an important event and builds upon the events in the previous scenes. Stage directions help to set the scenes and develop the characters. Plays rely on dialogue, the conversation between characters, to keep the plot moving. So dialogue is everything that is spoken, and then stage directions is everything in parentheses. I'll point that out once we get into the story. So this is The Miracle of Spring. Remember, these are all of our characters. So these are our main characters. Then we have Mother Nature's court. And then our jury just makes up of the animals, the birds, insects, trees, and flowers that are in the Mother Nature's court. Now here's our foreword. This lets us know some background knowledge. King Bartholomew bans spring. So here's King Bartholomew, and he bans spring. So here we kind of personified spring. We know spring is a season. This play gave spring a character, only to realize that this has shown disrespect for Mother Nature and has upset the cycles of the season and destroyed the food supply. So here are the production notes. This lets us know what we need to know before we start reading the play. So this play should only take about 15 minutes. We have our characters, which we just went over. Costumes. Now you wouldn't want to go see a play with everybody just wearing their normal clothes. You want to see them wearing a costume because it makes it feel like you're more in the world that the author of the play is trying to create. For example, if you had the King Bartholomew character and he wasn't wearing a crown or he wasn't wearing anything royal looking, he would just look ordinary and you wouldn't really think like, oh, that's a king. But you put the crown and the robe on and you go, oh, that's a king. If you had someone playing a squirrel, but they weren't dressed like a squirrel, you wouldn't really know it's a squirrel. Properties. This is a fancy way to say props. So these are all things needed in the play that people need to use, pass, or hold. And the setting. This lets us know where and when the story is taking place. This first scene is taking place in the king's bedroom, and it's very descriptive. It says, down right is a door leading to a castle interior. A large French door type window is at its left. That just means it's a really, really big door. At center is a large bed with many pillows and quilts on it. Near the bed are a night table and a bell cord. The lighting. It says the lights are going to be dimmed for like a kind of a dream sequence and brought up full again as indicated in the text. And the only sound effects we need are as a bell tolling 6 times. So this is Act 1.
Act 1. Setting: King Bartholomew's bedroom. At rise, King Bartholomew sits up in his bed, with a dinner tray on his lap. His valet stands at his bedside. At the door stands door guard. King, making a grimace and replacing spoon on his plate. Zounds! What is this tasteless pap?
Now you see what I was talking about, how stage directions are going to be in parentheses. So he's not going to say making a grimace and replacing a spoon in his plate. He's going to say this part. Zounds, what is this tasteless pap? But we need to know what he's doing when he's acting in the play. So now we know that he's making a grimace, and that's just kind of like a mean, like disgusted face. Like imagine if you took a bite of something you didn't like, that would be a grimace. Or if you're being made to do something you don't want to do, you'd make a grimace on your face. Look at his face there. He doesn't look happy. He's making a grimace. And you see him, he's replacing the spoon on his plate.
Valet. Cook calls it spring pudding, sire. It's on your diet. King. Bah, take it away. It's not what I eat that makes my stomach ache. It's aggravation. That tour of the kingdom yesterday, that's what made me sick. Valet. It was a beautiful day for a tour, sire. Spring has warmed the air and budded the trees. King, extremely aggravated. Indeed. And spring has turned my hard-working subjects into daydreaming idlers dozing in the sunshine. Everywhere I went, no one was working. Valet. Just a touch of spring fever, Your Highness. King. Spring fever is just another name for laziness, and I won't have it. Has the captain of the guard reported yet?
So here we can already tell the king is very upset with spring. So springtime has come, and he says that everyone is daydreaming, dozing in the sunshine, no one's working, and the valet. So a valet is someone that helps another person. It's more commonly used now as someone that will park your car for you, but back then there was someone who would get your breakfast, help you get dressed. So it's kind of like the king's helper. But he's very upset with spring, and the valet is like, no, it's okay, like, it's just spring fever.
Valet. No, sire, but the Prime Minister is waiting to see you. King. Send him in and find the Chancellor for me. Valet to door guard. The king will see the Prime Minister. Valet exits. Door guard. The Prime Minister to see the king. Prime Minister enters and bows. Prime Minister. Your Majesty. Good evening. King. Where is the report I ordered? Prime Minister. It's not quite finished yet, sire. I came to ask a favor. I'd like to take the day off tomorrow to take my kids fishing. King, exploding. Fishing? Of all the ridiculous things. Doubles over in pain. Oh. Out with you! As Prime Minister hastily retreats, Valet enters. Valet. The Chancellor has not yet returned from the tournament. King, exploding again. Tournament? Then I'll talk to the Chamberlain. Valet. He's taken his family on an outing, sire. King, again in pain. Outing? Oh! Give me my medicine, and get the captain of the guard immediately. Valet to door guard. Summon the captain. Guard exits. King, taking medicine which valet hands him from night table. Fishing, tournaments, outings. Door guard enters. Door guard. The captain of the royal guard. Captain enters. Captain. At your command, Your Highness. King. Have you taken your prisoner yet? Captain. Yes, Your Highness. The prisoner is outside. King. Then bring the criminal to me. Captain salutes and exits, returning immediately with 2 guards, leading between them Spring.
So now we know that the king has a prisoner. So he has taken Spring prisoner. So here's her, and here's the two guards, and he's now gotten out of bed.
Valet, shocked. "'Tis the maiden Spring." King, you are the one who has turned my kingdom upside down with fishing tournaments and outings. I'll not have it. Do you understand? I'll keep you under lock and key so you can do no more mischief. Spring remains silent. Take the prisoner to the dungeon and see that every measure is taken to prevent her escape. King falls back against pillows, exhausted. As guards salute and lead Spring away, King turns weakly to Valet. "You, stop staring like an idiot. Get out of here. I am exhausted. Wake me at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning." Valet. "As you wish, your highness. Pleasant dreams, sire." Valet takes tray and exits. King to Doorguard. "You two, out!" Doorguard. "Good night, your majesty." Exits. King closes his eyes. Lights dim.
So that ends our Act 1, and now we're getting into Act 2. So what we learned in Act 1 is King was upset that spring was going on and nobody was working, everybody was hanging out, they weren't doing what they were supposed to do in the kingdom. So he goes, you know what, I'm going to take Spring prisoner. So we have Spring as prisoner, and everyone's shocked at this. So in our Act 2, we are going to introduce the rest of the characters, and this is Mother Nature's court. So Mother Nature goes, oh my gosh, he arrested Spring. Spring is a prisoner. We need Spring. So she brings him to court where all the animals and everyone in Mother Nature's court can plead their case on why Spring is important. So the owl is the judge, and the character that says Eager Beaver, he's kind of the attorney. So he's the one that kind of, trying to think of the best way to put this. He orchestrates and organizes the court. So he calls up the witnesses, the other members of the court, and gets them to present their case, and he organizes everything. He's in charge, but the judge is the one that makes the decisions.
Act 2, Scene 1. Setting: King's bedroom. At rise, King is sleeping. Suddenly, large downstage window opens and Crow steps in. He looks around, then signals to the other members of Mother Nature's court. All except Judge enter. They carry bench and witness box, which they set up where it can be seen by King. Jury sits together, either on the floor or on folding chairs which they carry with them. The witnesses remain together in another area. Crow. "Caw! Caw! Hear ye! Hear ye! Mother Nature's court is now in session. Judge Wise Owl presiding. All rise." All rise as Judge Owl enters, goes to bench, and sits. King awakens. Judge Owl, pounding gavel. "What is the first case before the court?" Crow. "Mother Nature versus King Bartholomew, Your Honor." Judge. "Is the attorney for Mother Nature ready?" Eager Beaver. "Ready, Your Honor. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I, Eager Beaver, shall prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that King Bartholomew is guilty of attempted murder." King, sitting up in his bed. "Murder? I have never murdered anybody." Judge. "Quiet, please." Beaver. "I said attempted murder." King. "I have never even attempted murder." Judge. "You will have to restrain yourself, sire, or you will be held in contempt of court. You may proceed, Mr. Eager Beaver." Beaver. "I speak of the attempt to murder by starvation." King. "I have never starved anybody. Even the prisoners in our jail are given the finest peanut butter and jelly." Judge, this is your last warning, sire.
So here we are realizing what he's on trial for. And it says that he's on trial for attempted murder. And it says attempted murder by starvation. And we're going to explain why starvation would happen when it's spring, or if we got rid of spring.
Beaver, I call my first witness, Mrs. Appletree. Appletree comes forward. Crow, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Appletree, raising hand. I do. Beaver, Mrs. Tree, will you tell the court, please, why you were all dressed in drab brown instead of the bright green you usually wear this time of year? Appletree, because there is no spring this year. King Bartholomew has forbidden spring to come to this kingdom. Beaver, and is that why you are not wearing your pretty bonnet decked with blossoms? Appletree, yes, and I miss it so. Not only because every tree likes to look her prettiest, but also because it means I won't have any apples this year. The apples come from those spring blossoms. Beaver, and do you speak for the other fruit trees as well? Appletree, I do. There won't be any pears or peaches or cherries or plums, no spring, no blossoms, no fruit. Beaver, thank you, Mrs. Tree. That will be all. We have now proved that the people of the kingdom will have no fruit to eat this year. Next witness, Mr. Squirrel. Squirrel steps forward and is sworn in by Crow. Now, Mr. Squirrel, you are not your usual cheery self these days. Why is that? Squirrel, I'm worried. And so are all my brothers, sisters, cousins, and friends. Beaver, will you tell the court why you are worried? Squirrel, because we are going to starve to death next winter. Last year's harvest of nuts is almost gone, and there won't be any nuts this year. Beaver, no nuts? How's that? Squirrel, because the nuts are the fruits of the nut trees, just as the apples and pears are the fruits of the trees in the orchard. No blossoms on the nut trees, no nuts. Beaver, thank you, Mr. Squirrel. You may step down. Squirrel returns to his place. The court has now heard that we will have no fruit and no nuts in the kingdom this year. This will affect the lives of both the people and the animals. Next witness, Ms. Winter Wheat. Winter Wheat is sworn in by Crow. Will you tell the court, please, why you are known as Winter Wheat? Winter Wheat, because the farmer sows my seeds very early in the winter, before the ground freezes. He does this because he wants an early wheat crop in the spring. Beaver, that is a wise farmer. Will he have an early wheat crop as a result? Wheat, no, he won't, because the ground has to thaw and get warm before we can poke our green shoots through. Since there won't be any spring this year, there won't be any crop of winter wheat, or any other kind of wheat for that matter. Beaver, what will that mean to the people? Wheat, no wheat, no alfalfa, or barley, or corn, or any other kind of grain. And that means no cereals, and no flour, no bread, or rolls, or cake, or pies. Beaver, thank you, Ms. Wheat. You may step down. She does so. Well, no fruits, no nuts, no grains, no cereals, no flour, no baked goods to eat. Next witness, Ms. Stringbean. Stringbean is sworn in by Crow. Ms. Stringbean, your face looks especially long and thin this year. Why is that? Stringbean, because I'm so sorry for all the people who will be without me and all the other vegetables this year. Beaver, no vegetables this year? And why not, Ms. Bean? Stringbean, because the ground is hard and frozen, and the farmers cannot sow their seeds. And even the seeds that fell into the ground last year from Mother Nature's hand cannot mature into plants without warm soil and sun. Beaver. There, Miss Bean. I can see you're quite broken up. You are excused. She returns to her place. I think it's quite clear to the court why there will be no vegetables this year. Next witness, Ms. Bessie Cow. Crow swears in Bessie Cow. Bessie, I believe you have a story to tell the court. Bessie. A sad, sad story. I don't know how much longer there will be any milk or cream or cheese or ice cream for the people of the kingdom. Beaver. Now this sounds serious indeed. Are you sure? Bessie. Cows can't give milk unless they have nice green grass to eat. Where are we going to find nice green grass in this winter landscape? And soon, our winter supply of hay, alfalfa, oats, and corn will be all gone. No food, no milk. Beaver. Thank you, Bessie. Bessie returns to place. No milk, no butter, no cream, no cheese, no ice cream. Next witness, Mr. Woolly Lamb. Woolly Lamb is sworn in by Crow. Mr. Lamb, you're extremely woolly for this time of year, aren't you? Woolly Lamb. Shiver my timbers, yes. Usually the farmer's gone to work on me with his electric clippers by this time of year. But now, brr, it's too cold for me to do without my overcoat. Beaver. What will this mean to the people of the kingdom? Woolly Lamb. No wool for warm clothing and blankets. And if this winter weather continues, they will need more woolen clothing than ever before. Beaver. Thank you. Lamb returns to his place. Next witness, Ms. Honeybee. Honeybee is sworn in by Crow. What are you buzzing about so furiously, Ms. Bee? Honeybee. I'm so angry I could sting. Beaver. Why? Bee. Because I'm the champion honey maker, that's why. Last year, I won a blue ribbon at the county fair, and this year I won't be able to make a single drop of the delicious golden nectar. Beaver. No honey this year. That's terrible. Bee. No one will be sorrier than King Bartholomew because he just loves honey on his bread. A bee can't make honey without flowers, and you can't expect the gardeners to grow flowers when there isn't any spring. I tell you, I'm as angry as a bee can be. Beaver. Thank you, Ms. Bee. You may step down. Bee. Speaking angrily as she walks away from the witness box. And the bears, they'll be simply wild without their honey. Beaver to jury. We're all going to miss the flowers this year, and the birds, and the sunshine. But most importantly, patting his stomach, we're all going to miss our food. King Bartholomew is attempting to starve us, and I say he deserves to be found guilty and given the harshest punishment Judge Owl can deliver. Jury, rising. Yes, guilty, guilty, guilty. King, jumping out of his bed. Wait! Judge, I warned you that the next outburst from you would be in contempt of court. See that he keeps quiet. Crow, witnesses, and jury advance menacingly toward King, who hurriedly climbs back into bed and pulls covers over his head. Jury, chanting in a low monotone. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Suddenly, a bell tolls 6 times. All the characters of Mother Nature's court quickly exit through the downstage window, taking their props with them. Scene 2. Setting, King's bedroom. At rise, the lights come up full, and King jumps out of bed, pulls bell cord. Door guard opens door, takes his customary stand.
So we just finished Act 2, Scene 1, which was the courtroom, where all of Mother Nature's court pled their cases and said a reason why they need spring to happen, because people are going to starve and suffer if they are not able to have spring. So now the king is like, oh my gosh, they think I'm guilty. I'm going to be in trouble. I need to do something.
Dorgard. Good morning, Your Highness. I trust you slept well? King. It was a terrible night. Just terrible. What a dream. Where's my valet? Dorgard. He is coming now, Your Highness.
Did you catch what was just revealed? So remember in the first act, he says, wake me up at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, and he goes to bed and the lights kind of fade. He had a dream. So there was really no Mother Nature's court. And there was no jury and judge. Because if you think about it, like animals really can't do that. That's a fiction. So this was all a dream. So when he wakes up, he's like, oh my gosh, I realize what I've done is wrong.
Valet enters. Valet. Good morning, Your Majesty. King. Get me my dressing gown. Hurry. Valet helps him into his dressing gown while he talks. Find the captain of the guard immediately. Valet to Dorgard. The captain of the guard, immediately. King, pacing. I've done a very terrible thing. I only hope it's not too late. Dorgard. The captain of the guard. Captain enters. Captain, trembling and dropping to his knees. It wasn't my fault. The chains were tight and the door securely locked and barred. King, stop your prattling. There's no time to lose. Go quickly and see to it that the chains are removed from the maiden Spring, and bring her to me so that I may apologize to her. Captain, that's what I'm trying to tell you. She isn't there. She's gone. King, gone. Spring, stepping through downstage window. Did you want to see me? She smiles at King. King, dropping to his knees before her. Can you forgive a foolish man the greatest mistake of his life? Spring, extending her hand to him and bidding him to rise. A foolish man you may have been, to think that you or any other man or woman could command the forces of nature at your will. Did you really believe that dungeon doors or iron chains could keep Spring from walking your land? King, contritely. I was foolish. Now I know better. Spring. Spring is a yearly miracle of nature, as constant as the moon and the stars. Planting time and harvest time, summer and winter, day and night, these must always come. King, what can I do to earn your forgiveness? Spring, open your eyes and heart to your environment. Now, if you don't mind, I must be on my way, my spring wonders to perform. Spring takes King's arm and they walk to window. Spring steps through it, smiling, and disappears. King remains at the window, watching her depart, waving. King takes a deep breath and, smiling, turns back toward the room. Dorgard. The Prime Minister to see the King. King. Good. Prime Minister enters with a paper in her hand. You're just the person I want to see. Prime Minister. Your report? I stayed up all night to finish it. King. Never mind that now. Tell me, is this the day you wish to take your kids fishing? Prime Minister. Forgive me, sire, it was foolish of me. King. Not at all. You may have the day off on one condition. Prime Minister. Condition? King. Yes, the condition that you take me with you. Prime Minister, astonished. You? Fishing? King. Yes, I think it would be good for my stomachache. Besides, it seems I have a touch of spring fever. Curtain. The end.
All right, so we've just finished the story. So let's go over these couple collaborative discussion questions. Why is King Bartholomew so annoyed with his subjects? He is annoyed because they are being lazy and hanging out in the spring weather and not working. Why will it be difficult to find food if spring is forbidden? How do the witnesses feel about this possibility? It will be difficult to find food in the spring if it is forbidden because spring is needed for things to grow. How do the witnesses feel about this possibility? They are upset because they do not want to starve. How does King Bartholomew change from the beginning of the play to the end? He changes his mind on banning spring. How did he come to this? What caused the change? His dream of Mother Nature's court showed him that he was in the wrong. You are going to use this play to answer these questions of elements of drama. So why might someone want to read the production notes? So this was that little part that we read in the beginning that set up the play for us. List 3 important characters in the cast of characters. You can go back in the video where it shows you the entire list of characters. And I'll pull it up right now for you. So here are production notes. Feel free to pause to answer those questions. And here are the characters. Read Act 2. Give an example of the stage directions in this act. Why are they important? Give an example of dialogue in the play. State who said the dialogue. So I want you to quote an important part of dialogue. Remember, dialogue is something that is said. Why might the author have chosen to tell this story as a court case? I want you to think, why did the author make Mother Nature's court be in a courtroom to be able to plead their case to the king? Next, I want you to answer some text questions. Answer each question in complete sentences, please. Please remember that this is starting with a capital letter and ending with a punctuation. You will need to look back in the story to find your answer and to provide text evidence. So using text details, explain why the king doesn't like spring. I want you to give 2 effects of king locking up spring. What are 2 things that happened because he locked up spring? Using the text, explain why there will be no ice cream in the kingdom. I want you to remember which character gives us ice cream. And then you can go back to that part. Explain what the king means at the end of the play when he says, I have a touch of spring fever. Remember, we heard that in the beginning. We heard that right here by the valet. Just a touch of spring fever, Your Highness. So it's giving us a callback to that moment. If you have any other questions, please let me know. You can message me on Dojo. This should give you plenty of information and help. Feel free to pause the video at any point to be able to help you better answer the analysis of the Secret Garden and the Miracle of Spring. And this finishes up our What a Story unit. Next week, we'll be doing poetry. So we need to make sure that we really understand the literary elements of character and setting, plot, and events, and also the elements of the drama. All right, have a great weekend and stay safe.